All right, folks. So, Friends Day. Day that we typically celebrate friends old and new. In order that we might see a fuller image of God. Just like how Peter saw a fuller image of God in Jesus. While they're discussing who the Son of Man is, who Jesus is, Peter, inspired by God, declares him to be the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus points out that this isn't him that's revealing it. It's not flesh and blood, but it is God, God's self. It is the Creator who has revealed this to Peter. See, all the other disciples had been talking about Jesus, saying, well, he's one of the prophets, one of the important figures in our faith tradition, to be sure. Peter takes it one step further and says, no, you are the prophet. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God, the chosen one, the anointed one, who is going to save us all. What an amazing revelation to have, to profess, to celebrate. And it seems interesting that Jesus uplifts this, says, yes, you are absolutely right, you get it. And on you, the church is going to be built. Now don't tell anyone about this. Interesting, isn't it? But it shows for us as the church just how interesting and invigorating God's presence in our lives can be. That it opens up our eyes to see new things, to see things in a new way. It reveals to us things we never would have imagined about those around us. This is something that we at Wilderness love to celebrate on Friends Day. Celebrating the fact that God has brought people of different backgrounds, people of different heritages, brought them all together despite different circumstances in order to be friends, in order to share in that communion, that community together, united through Christ. This is not revelation by flesh and blood, but this is work done by the Creator, revealing God's self to us, that we, as mentioned in the children's sermon, might recognize a fuller image of God, created in those different from us. Now, I want to point out here, as you are probably already well aware, but Peter is not perfect. Just 2 weeks ago, we heard how the rock on which the church is to be built, walking on water, begins to sink like a rock. Kind of funny. We also hear that in Jesus' time of trial, that Peter's the one that denies him 3 times. Not exactly the ideal candidate, and yet this is who the church is built on. And finally, we're going to see very shortly after this moment where Jesus uplifts Peter, calls him, says, you won't be Simon anymore, but Peter, because you have revealed this amazing thing. Shortly afterwards, what does Jesus say? Get thee behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block, which, again, as a rock being a stumbling block, I find quite humorous. But we see that Peter is nowhere near perfect. He gets things wrong, he screws things up. And yet, God still works through him to reveal God's self to us. God still creates something new, reveals something amazing through Peter's eyes and through his words and through his revelation. And we aren't perfect either. I think by now that should be pretty obvious. If anyone here thinks that they're perfect, I would ask you, why are you in church then, if you've got it all figured out? But we gather together not because we're perfect, not because we are blameless, not because we feel that we have earned the right to receive all that God gives to us. We gather together because we are called together, because we have been called together by God, not by human flesh and blood, but by God and God's call. Despite our differences, maybe because of that, despite our shortcomings, despite obstacles that try to hinder us, like a pandemic going on, we manage to gather together, finding new ways to do it, finding new things through God. All so that we can celebrate the gift, the amazing and wonderful gift that we receive in Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, of a living and breathing and changing and life-altering God. We celebrate all of this together, and we celebrate the friends around us, those we've known for ages and those we're just starting to know. And through them we receive this revelation just like Peter did. We gather together, and in brief glimpses we see the face of God, and it humbles us, and it amazes us, and it brings us closer together, so that those differences that normally would perhaps separate us, that those cultural and historical and economical differences suddenly melt away. Because what really is important to us is not who we are in the human realm, but that we have been claimed by God. That we have all been adopted together into a new and better family. So perhaps instead of Friends Day, we should call this our family gathering day. Maybe instead of calling one another friends, we should call one another siblings. Because through the life, teachings, preachings, healings, and death of Jesus Christ, we have been saved and given new life together. And that is truly wonderful news. Thanks be to Creator.